Hello everyone. It's a Friday. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Rainy day. And I'm out here in the rain. So I let up a little bit right now. But it's even as a rainy day, it's still a nice day. Anyway, I decided to come up here after taking a break from my work at home, just to be outside a little bit. It's a good day to be out here right now because there's nobody coming up, so it'll probably be quiet most of the time that I'm here. And I have a chance to talk a little bit. What I'd like to talk about today is humans in nature and what it means to be human while you're in nature. I guess there are a lot of different ways that you can approach that. People have all sorts of ways of being out in nature. People go outside and do sports. They do their hiking and their skiing and their kayaking and their sailing, different things like that. So of course there's physical things that people do, also hunting and fishing, things like that also. Physical things that people do to be out here. And of course there are probably many reasons why people do those kinds of sports and other activities when they're out here. Part of it is to get your body moving. Part of it is to just to get out of the confines of a home, of a house, or a building, or of a town or city, and to be out here where things aren't human-made. So those are things that people, I think about when they're doing those sports and things like that. I know that I do, and one of the reasons why I really love hiking is just to be able to move and to be out there and see what my body can do. What I'd like to focus on a little bit more today is another side of it that for me has always been a very important aspect of what nature is to me and what I think about when I'm out there and how I feel when I'm out there, out here. It's been something that has been with me ever since I can remember, and I'm sure most children probably feel it in some way or another. It's probably one of the reasons why children often have their secret hideouts. Usually those secret hideouts are somewhere out in a natural place. And it's probably something to do with being out in the world and feeling like you're a part of it. And as you get older, I think that feeling tends to get more and more diffused. You tend to get more and more away from it. And I think part of it is because of the way that we live, because of the ways that towns are built. So when you're out there, you have a chance to partly look in on yourself and have a chance to have a conversation with yourself. And I'm not sure why nature does that. Some people might say that it's because you're alone and there's nobody else there to gainsay you, or someone there to interrupt you, or someone there to give their opinions. And that's probably true. But I think it's more than that too. There's something about the world being alive that brings you in when you're out there. And even though there's a lot of danger and there are things that can be harmful to you, and you can fall, rock fall, or something can fall on your head, or an animal can attack you, or you could get lost and lose your life to hypothermia or not having enough to eat or not having enough water, things like that. Those are all things that are, of course, possible. But it's at the same time that when you're out there, it's this sense of you being alive and the world being alive and you being together with those other living things. I mean, after all, that is where we come from. We come from the living world. We are also living things. We evolved within this whole thing. So when you're out there, you have a sense that you are part of all of that going on around you. Part of the problem, of course, is that most of us today don't grow up within that whole world. Most of us don't know very much about nature. I mean, if I was suddenly thrown out into the middle of a really wild place, far, far away from any civilized place that, where humans live, I probably couldn't survive. I mean, I could survive probably about a week or so, but I wouldn't know how to catch food very well. I mean, I know the basics of it. I've seen it. I've read it in books. I've seen it in documentaries and things like that. So I have an idea of how they do, but I have no idea actually how to catch things or the kinds of plants that I can eat, which ones are poisonous, things like that. I have very little idea about that. So it means basically that I have very little idea of what it means to live in the living world that we originally came from. I'm completely taken care of in the artificial world that humans created. We are all taking care of one another, but at the same time we're very detached from the living world that we come from. Of course, there's still people in the world today who know how to live in that and who still live daily within that. And I think their understanding of what nature is and also of how to live within nature is probably more authentic than what we have. And it's also probably more understanding of what life and death is in that way. I've spent a lot of time out in nature and I've watched very carefully. I've spent my time with living things, trying to see them more clearly and to see how they live and try to understand them. But I'm not really part of their lives. When I see, for instance, in this area, there are a lot of wild boars. When I see a wild boar, their lives within this forest over here are different. They depend on this forest to be alive. They know where the food is. They know where the safe places are. They know where it's warm and where it's cold, where the wind blows more often. They know where the cliffs are, where it can be dangerous to walk. They know where the water is that they can drink. I have only a very rudimentary idea of where those things are, and I wouldn't know how to survive in these hills at all. I'd probably go hungry very quickly. So there's this understanding of nature that you get the more you spend time with it and the more you depend upon it to live. Which is why I have mixed feelings about our whole outdoor industry that hikers and mountain climbers and skiers and kayakers and all the different people who do sports outdoors. There is a sense of detachment of those sports and of no real connection to the living world around. It's just a temporary time that you spend out there, and you always go back home after that. And only a few people could actually stay out longer and to survive out there. So basically, the outdoor industry for me, even though I love it in many ways, it's also something that takes me away from what I'm actually looking for when I go out into nature. And that started as a kid. And how it started is this whole sense of when I'm out there, I want to feel that I am not there anymore. Basically what I mean is that I, as a person, disappear. within the whole living thing. And that's why when I go into the big mountains, the smaller I feel, the more diminutive I feel, the more wonderful I feel when I'm out there. I love that feeling of feeling like I'm almost nothing. And when that feeling comes, it's as if something inside me expands and whatever is out there comes inside me, and it's all one and the same thing. It's one of the most wonderful feelings that I can ever feel, and when I'm in good shape and I'm moving well in the mountains, and even if it's raining, I feel strong and I can move forward and I know what to do. And a light comes out from behind a cloud after a big thunderstorm. That feeling is incredible. And that feeling makes me feel that I'm not so important. And that non-importance is important in itself. To me, that is a significant thing that human beings are missing in the world today. I don't feel that we live with enough of it. I remember one of the first times that I experienced this was when I was about, I think I must have been about 13 or 14 years old, and I was in Germany. And I'm from Hannover, in the northern part of Germany. And my grandmother and my grandfather had taken my brother and I out to the Harz Mountains, which is just east of Hannover. And we stayed at a pension. And one thing I would do every morning is that I would wake up at about 3 or 4 when it was just getting light. Everybody else was still asleep. And take my camera, and I just go up into the mountains, and just walk. Usually I would stay on the main trails, but the more I got used to the places and the more I saw where the trails were, I would start going off on deer trails or trails that animals would take, and just let myself get a little bit lost in the woods. And one time I was kneeling down in a patch of underbrush along a deer trail, taking a photograph of some mushrooms. Suddenly, to the right of me, I heard this scuffling noise on the leaves on the ground. And I turned, and there, right in front of me, about 2 meters away, was a doe roe deer. It was only about this high, and it had suddenly stopped in its tracks and was staring at me. And I stared back. We both just looked at each other. I couldn't move, it couldn't move. But there wasn't a sense of panic. For me, there was no sense of having been so different from it that it would just immediately bolt and fear for its life. And at the same time, it didn't seem to sense any danger in me. And for it must have been about 15 seconds, we were just looking at each other. And during that time, I felt a real quieting in my heart, or whatever you call it. I became very quiet. And it also became very quiet. I could see the tension in its body disappear. And we just stared at each other for about 15 seconds. After the 15 seconds passed, it slowly turned around and started walking away. I could just watch it walk away. It didn't run or anything. And then at about maybe 10 meters away, it suddenly turned into the underbrush and disappeared. And it's that sense of communion with another living thing, that sense that we're living in this world together, that I am trying to feel whenever I'm outdoors, whenever I'm in a natural area. And it's very important for me. The other day, I was up here, and I was about to do this video. It was getting dark, and there wasn't much time left for the light. I was hurrying and I was trying to get the video going, and just as I was ready to press the record button, down the mountain over here, there was a huge megaphone that came up from probably a car that was traveling around town. And it was a Christian evangelist group trying to promote the message of Jesus Christ and trying to get people to listen. It's a rather unusual thing in Japan. You don't see it very often here, but occasionally you have people doing it. But the sound was so loud that it overtook the entire mountain, and you could hear it echoing off the mountains over there. And I couldn't do my recording. So I turned it off, and it got dark, and I just watched the sunset for a while, and then I went home. What bothered me was that even though I have no trouble with people believing what they believe, one thing that bothers me is that for me, this is something akin to a religion, but it's not a religion in that way. It doesn't teach me basic human values in the same way that maybe a religious person or a philosopher might tell me about things. But it does give me a sense of who I am, and also it gives me a sense of my not being important as a way to understand how to deal with the disappointments of life, or how to deal with the whole idea of death, how to deal with the idea of eating, the arguments that people have between vegetarians and carnivores and those kinds of things. They help me to understand how to see it and how to live with it. Just watching life since I was a boy all the way until now, it's always there, the same thing. It's been there for thousands of years, millions of years, billions of years. And that continues, and life grows within that sphere, within that time frame. And to me, that's a very important thing about being alive and about being human. And that's why, for me, this whole human-centric understanding of what is important and why we deserve these things or those things, why we deserve property, why we deserve to have a home in this place, why we deserve, like if you look down from this mountain and look at the town, the entire plain area, the entire flat land is completely covered with human dwelling. Not a single space for other living things. I mean, other living things might be there within the cracks and things, but they don't dominate it. They don't have their own places that are theirs alone. We don't give any of that to them. The only reason why these mountains are here is because we let it, and we can't build here. It's too much trouble to take it down. So, to me, that whole idea that human beings are the center of the universe, and that we deserve everything, and that the human race surviving within, for instance, right now, the pandemic, how important it is for us to survive. I mean, of course, for us, it's an important thing, but if you look at it from afar, and you look at it as a whole, are we really that important? People will have their arguments about whether or not we're important or not. But I feel for myself that we shouldn't be looking at ourselves as such important things. It's arrogant. It's arrogant beyond belief, the way that we live. Humility is an important thing. Maybe the pandemic is showing us from nature's point of view just how arrogant we are and just how unimportant we are. If we can learn a little bit about that, I think we will learn more about how to take care of this planet that we live on, the only place that we have that we can live on, that we must take care of, and yet we're not. This whole foolishness and inability to connect what we are doing with other things around and how their survival ensures that our survival will also do, and that our survival will ensure their survival if we take care of the places that we live in. And that's why, for me, the human equation within the natural world is an important thing to consider. We need to learn how to bring ourselves to be less important, how to see. Well, there's an airplane flying by. Let it pass by. Okay, it's mostly passed by. So yes, how to bring ourselves down to be quieter and more humble, and do what we can to ensure that all living things, as many as we can, are able to survive, and that they're able to live within the world. They have just as much right to be here as we do. It doesn't matter what they are, whether they're something that we value, such as dogs and cats, or some of the bigger animals, even an ant on the ground, even bacteria, even coronavirus, however you might feel about it, it has just as much right to be here as we do. And perhaps for us to learn a little bit more about death and how we accept death and how we live with death. I don't think we've spoken enough about it as a society. I think we need to learn more about the necessity of it in terms of not getting ourselves to be living forever. I mean, if we end up living for thousands and thousands of years, is that actually a good thing for the world? Is it a good thing for us? I don't know. I can't answer a lot of those things, but it makes you think. So, yes, what does it mean to be human in the natural world? I think it's something that maybe in the coming years, as we face global warming. Okay. Yeah. Somebody just came by. I didn't think anybody would come in the rain, but they came and was doing some exercise, so I had to wait a little bit. Anyway, I just want to finish up here. Yeah, I think I was talking about global warming and what we have to do about it. A lot of these things are not simple. They're difficult to deal with, difficult to know what the separation is between humans and the natural world, if there even is a separation. But a lot of people still talk as if humans and nature are separate things. There never was and there never will be. We're still part of it, and everything that we do is natural. All the things that we build are all natural. I mean, we're natural creatures, so of course what we build is going to be natural. The only problem with it is, of course, that a lot of the stuff that we do is harmful to the rest of the living world. And the living world depends upon itself to survive. Living things make other living things live. That's the thing. And the thing is that we're breaking that chain. And without that chain, life cannot survive. And I don't think human beings really understand that. And that's why, for me, it's an important thing for us to come to the point where we can understand that humans and nature are the same thing, and that we need to it's like taking care of our own health. We've got to take care of the entire body and our way we think about things and what we eat, and whether that what we eat is healthy and fresh, and the water is healthy, and the air that we breathe is healthy. All of it is important, and that's how we take care of ourselves. But we ourselves are like a microcosm of what the natural world is, the living world is. In order for us to survive within the living world, we have to take care of it in the same way that we take care of our bodies. So that's the thing that I want to get across, is the idea that human beings are part of the world. And it's not just a physical thing, but it's also a mental thing. The way that we understand and live within it, I think, is an important thing for us to do. Anyway, I wanted to touch on that idea. If you have any questions about it, please ask. If you have any of your own opinions about what nature means to you, please write it in the comments, and please tell everybody what you think and how you think about all of this. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. I'll talk to you again soon.